for me. Allow me an introduction of 3-4 minutes. We are going to have a panel now. We are going to talk about EBA knowledge management and networking, and we're going to dive into the topic. And we are asking the question where it is right now and where we're going to head. Okay, so we have 4 participants in the panel, and I would just mention the names. And maybe before we start this panel, I would like you, and before I talk about the survey, colleagues, I didn't forget the survey, don't worry. I would like, when I call the name, please just open your camera just so people see you, and then stay open with the camera, and then everybody knows who you really are. So of course we have the BMU, Dorothea Konstantinidis, Ikizug, on behalf of Ikizug on behalf of BMU. So yeah, it would be nice to have your video. Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, thank you
Pleased
very
to be here.
much. Yeah, I will present you in detail when we start the discussion. Then we have Xiaoting Hu Jones. I already talked with today. Please open the camera, maybe. Hi.
Hi,
Good.
everyone.
Yeah, I like your background. It's way better than the gray wall before. Good. Thank you. Then we have Ali Raza Rizvi from IUCN, and she's representing the FIBA. Hi, Ali.
Hey, how are you, everyone?
Hello. And we have Arno Skeider. He is basically my boss today, and he is the head of project mainstreaming EBA at GIZ. Arno?
Hi, everyone. I'll just have to offer a gray wall today. So.
Yeah. No difference than yesterday, right? No, that's fine. That's good. A neutral background is always good. Thank you for all 4 of you to be here, to be available. You know, and before we start the panel, I just want to say that we have a survey. And please, for the participants, I think we have the survey live, don't we, Alexandra? It would be good to know the answers for 2 questions. She's going to put it online, and we are going to get back to those questions later. And then, yeah, where are they? Okay, let's see. You have them? The voting. They're basically 2 questions. Which networks are you using? Which other networks do you use to spread and receive information in EBA? And then continue. And we have a second question. Which other networks do you use to spread and receive information in EBA? And I will revert to this later on. So yeah, we can at the end of the discussion. So now, of course, we talked with the participants before we planned this. Usually I would say, you know, the BMU, the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, should start, but this time we all agreed to turn it around a little bit and have the projects there, or the initiatives, their funding talking first, and then we have the BMU. We give the floor to the BMU. And so I would like to start off with the IIED, with Xiaoting Hu Jones. Maybe you can describe your organization, your initiative, what you're doing, you know, the famous journalistic questions, what, where, with whom, for whom, and how, and just give a bit of an overview to the participants of this event today that don't know you exactly what you're doing. That would be great. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks. The project I'm sharing today is called EBA Evidence and Policy, implemented by IIED, IUCN, and the UNEP WCMC, and the many great national partners in 12 countries since 2015. And I wouldn't spend my precious 4 minutes to introduce you to IIED because it probably takes quite a long time. But what we do within the project really reflect what IIED usually do, basically using lived experience and practices to influence global policies. So I wouldn't actually usually describe our project as a knowledge management project, and we're not a global EBA network, but a large part of the project is about generating and sharing knowledge of EBA. And most importantly, we do this through supporting and enhancing, some may call the vertical knowledge flow, which is about linking local voices and knowledge to national and international networks and policy forums like FEBA, supporting the exchange and the learning among partners, but most importantly from local to national and international levels. So there's three main areas of work in relation to enhancing that vertical knowledge exchange that we do. First, we support co-generation of knowledge and evidence to influence national and international policies. So for example, we interviewed and engaged with hundreds of local and national stakeholders in 12 countries and produced a global synthesis of evidence on EBA effectiveness, which many of you may know of. Those really draws on local and national perspectives, and the evidence generated then were turned into tailored national international policy briefs and informed policy engagement that enabled us to actually improve national policies for EBA in 9 countries and contributed to CBD and the UNCCC proceedings. On the other hand, that global synthesis also helped local and national stakeholders understand better how to design, implement, and support EBA. And the second big part is then based on that co-generation of knowledge, we also gave very tailored support and the platforms to offer marginalized local voices to help them engage, share their knowledge, and influence national, international policy forums. So those local stakeholders include women, local farmers, communities, indigenous peoples, local governments, and practitioners. And those local stakeholders often are actually experiencing the climate change impact. They're already trying to innovate and to adapt to them. So their lived experience and knowledge for us is really critical for designing EBA and for designing the right national and international responses. So for example, within that package of work, we try to bring those local practitioners' voice into UNCCC by co-convening development and climate days along with EbA CoP every year. Most recently in September, we also led an MBS nature-based solution track at a community-based adaptation conference that brought together more than 500 people from 77 countries through a series of innovative virtual events. Many of those participants are youth champions, farmers, practitioners, government representatives. And in collaboration with FEBA, we collated local stories on how EBA can help us cope with and recover better from COVID-19 to influence green recovery policies. Last but not least, the final package will work to strengthen knowledge generation and sharing capacity of local stakeholders and build strong network of those local stakeholders so they can be empowered to engage in national and international discourses and implement EBA at scale beyond our project timeline. So for example, if those of you who participated in the communication session yesterday may have heard my colleague Gabriella talking about how we're working in South Africa, China, Uganda, and Peru with local partners to enhance and support their communication capacities so they can tell their own stories of EBA better. In China, we support a network of farmers in most climate vulnerable regions to exchange knowledge and scale up EBA implementation. So as we work on this vertical knowledge linkage, we're not really designed to be a global network, but maybe less known to many of you participating today. So we actually really appreciate global networks like FEBA and GIZ's community of practice, which help us strengthen the horizontal links with other global partners, and we've been collaborating quite actively. So look forward to learning and sharing with more colleagues today.
Thank you very much. Now I also personally understand your project better. Thank you very much. Let's finish this presentation. Let's move on to the friends of EBA, FEBA, Ali. Maybe you can give a short description of what you're doing and the purposes, objectives, and maybe also some preliminary successes. And yeah, that would be great. Thank you. The screen is yours.
Thank you, Tobias. And first of all, congratulations, GIZ, Arno, and team on organizing such a great event. FEBA, let me very quickly, in the given time, take you through the history, why it was needed and what we are doing together with all of you and many others who might not be present today. When this term ecosystem-based adaptation was coined by IUCN and members in 2008, and then in 2009, CBD officially defined it. It was a, sort of a paradigm shift, because in conservation, natural resource, and all these protection, ecosystem services and other, the narrative was that co-benefits may help the communities. So it was always conservation, environment-centric approaches where the co-benefits might or might not help. In the context of climate change, when this, we saw that not only humans, assets and others are at risk, but also ecosystems, because their services were also getting impacted and all this. So that's why it was needed to have an approach which is well integrated and on the principles of development. So it's no more ecosystem centric approaches, of course, benefits. It is human centric, where ecological, social, and economic benefits, they all need to work concurrently. That is the fine difference when you were asking previous speakers in the other session. The difference is EBA is human centric, and now nature-based solutions for adaptation, as per the definition, operational component is EBA. So it's no more, like people many a time getting confused that NBS, what is that, or EBA and all this. No, NBS an umbrella term, as Jesse was saying, as IUCN defined it in 2016, and it was approved. Under that umbrella term, EBA is the operational component for climate adaptation. So that's how, and that's where it was needed when ICI BMU was the first, major champion of EBA and started funding the first project, Mountain EBA, which was implemented by UNEP, UNDP, and IUCN. And then there were so many, projects coming up. And people, as I said, there was a paradigm shift, no more ecosystem centric, using, ecosystem services and other, but human centric. But implementation processes were still based on individuals' perceptions, knowledge, all the positive, negative biases and all this. So there was a need that we learn from each other. I still recall sitting in Lima, 2014 COP, and we all, discussing that, wow, there is no knowledge sharing. We are meeting, making mistakes and all this. Then we discuss what's stopping us, going through and sharing knowledge. So that's where FEBA was, coined, and we all started working together. And then the first meeting was held in June 2015 at BMU building in Bonn. And that's where we started working together. So main objective was knowledge sharing, avoiding reinventing square wheels, building on strengths, and not having, our own flag all the time. So that's what gave us the strength. And the first major was, you might be surprised, in adaptation, being 30, 40 years, we don't have a yardstick. What is a successful adaptation? What are the standards here? So FEBA, working together with many, IIED, GIZ, and many other, 20 partners, we came up with the first time EBA standards and qualification criteria, quality standards in 2017. And that's also now being used in many operational elements. M&E, then guidebook came, which GIZ led together with FEBA, WCMC, and others. And that also giving us how to do the monitoring, evaluation, and course correction, because it's a paradigm shift, as I keep repeating myself, and still sometimes it's polarized. People either working just on biodiversity conservation and thinking co-benefits will help. Some are just on socio-economic. Success won't be there unless and until economic, social, and economic elements, all ecological, they come together and concurrently. And that's where it is very much needed that these are integrated. These must be non-negotiable. That's what we are trying to do. And very quickly, successes working with UNFCCC, we initially, all of us, meaning members, we have now over 80 members and, various working groups. And we all try to work, and many a time we have policy briefs and distributing at the co-ops and SAPSTA. And, look at the policymakers, they are, getting maybe on health, on education, on gender, and, maybe hundreds of policy briefs. Why not, we thought, come together and do one. And that's what we did in 2017. And together with Nairobi Work Program, UNFCCC, EBA, FEBA worked together to work on the adaptation synthesis report also. Similarly, now we are working with many groups, as Fatma also shared, for climate change and biodiversity linkages for grassland and forest. So those things are going on. Many working groups are functional, they are taking forward. So the objective is, knowledge sharing, and then identifying where are the policy gaps, and then working groups come in to address it through developing guidelines. And that's why so many things going on. And now we are also bringing in diverse actors into this. Many a time we are talking to the core sort of a thing, talking to each other. But now we also working through Grey Green Infrastructure Guidebook, which is being led by CI and FEBA and Community of Practice of Grey Green, architects, civil engineers, and other coming together and taking forward how to strengthen the green component in Grey infrastructure and how to strengthen the codes and civil, which is a weak link in adaptation and all this. So end of the day, whatever we call EBA and all this, basically the approach is to have ecological, social, and economic elements concurrently working towards addressing climate adaptation and enhancing resilience. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. This is not easy to do this within 4 or 5 minutes to explain all the different layers and the complexity, but this was well done. Basically, what I understood here is really there was and is a lot of knowledge, get the knowledge together, exchange the knowledge, and help to have the different sectors, socioeconomic, environmental together, so to find solutions and lift this information or these conclusions also up to the policy level, right? I mean, this is kind of, it might not cover all, but very broadly, if I had to write in a newspaper article, probably this is how I would kind of frame it. Thank you very much. Okay, Arno, please, you have the floor, you have the camera, and then Ms. Konstantinidis, have a little bit more patience, and of course I give the floor to you. And then Arno, please, 4 minutes.
Yes, thanks, Tobias. I would like to pick up on Ali's idea to go a little bit back in history and just explain a little bit more why we are all doing this, why we are all engaged in knowledge exchange on EBA. I mean, we are all aware that despite significant successes and positive examples of ecosystem-based adaptation in the global practice over the last years, it's still predominantly grey infrastructure measures that are planned and implemented. So one of the reasons being that many adaptation stakeholders are still unfamiliar with the EBA alternatives to grey infrastructure, and just don't have the knowledge, or don't not exactly know how to tap on it. So that's why the Global EBA project came into being, or was commissioned by the BMU in 2015, with the objective that the key stakeholders are using EBA instruments and solutions for their domestic and also international planning and implementation measures, and understand EBA as part of a holistic, Ali mentioned that, and strategic approach for adapting to climate change. As we also heard yesterday from the BMU, the funds that the BMU makes available for EBA and MBS have increased constantly over the last years. So mention was made that in 2019 that were 50 million euro invested in new projects. And that means also that the number of new projects that are promoting this approach worldwide has also increased. And some of these new projects are very large regional and sectoral projects. And here it appears particularly important that these projects can draw on the existing knowledge and experience for implementing EBA approaches right from the start. And that's where we have a particular role to give those projects a good jump start, and to see to that they get on the rails. So what is it, what we exactly do? I mentioned that in my opening yesterday. It's we do development of concepts, methods, and instruments, and that's what we predominantly did in the first phase from 2015 to 2017. And then we figured in also the beam you said. Now we have all the instruments, we have all the concepts, and now let's go into implementation. And that's how we focus more on being a knowledge brokering or knowledge project, basically. And that, of course, also implies that we produced a lot of publications, learning briefs, reports, and I'm not going to run them all down on you now. But just to mention but a few, we did analysis on the entry points, the vulnerability and climate risk assessments, and strategic communication is very important, and also the monitoring and evaluation study that was introduced yesterday. And you all can find that on Adaptation Community Net. Tobias, you also wanted to know for whom are we doing this, right? And that's a little bit of a slight difference to what we've heard so far. Our main target group is really national governments, because GIZ supports mainly government to government and cooperation, partly via NGOs. We are closely collaborating with civil societies and research institutions, think tanks, of course. We also closely working with UN, Convention, CBD, UNFCCC, and but above all, however, we work with advisors in bilateral projects using our GIZ worldwide network. Where we are working in more than 80 countries worldwide, so we can really tap on these resources and get really close to our partners. What's important? Maybe just to finish with just highlighting some of what's really important. We can all do this only if we really seek partnership and forge alliances with other organizations from government, civil society, just with you, Ali, in your organization, IUCN, we are very close, IAED, and many others. So I think that is really the only way we can make good headway over the next couple of years. And that's still a lot of work to be done. And I think I'll stop here and just wait for the next questions, Tobias. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Arno, and thank you very much to the three presenters. And now, Ms. Konstantinidis, maybe you have the floor now. You have the screen. You listen to the three projects. You are fine. Basically, let us be clear. You are EbA CoP project, and you are talking on behalf of the BMU. So this is just to make clear. So formalities need to be given justice to. So okay. So you heard all the three projects. So is this what you expected from the presentations? Of course, not a serious question, but is this something you can really what mirrors that you as a project would, or you at EbA CoP would expect what's happening in those three projects?
Well, thank you. Luckily, they keep us well informed at the ICI, so we are actually aware of their activities and their achievements, and actually value them very much. Even though it's always nice on such an occasion to get the most recent updates. But let me explain a bit more on what the importance of these knowledge management projects is. Knowledge is the precondition for effective adaptation as well as the protection of biodiversity. All the actors involved must be able to carry out their tasks in a responsible and informed way. And to this end, apart from legal frameworks and institutions that we need that take actions, we actually must build up the knowledge necessary amongst all those involved. And this requires to provide knowledge and relevant knowledge products and to connect the relevant actors. We heard this. This existing knowledge and the experience gained must be processed and disseminated further to be able to meet the global challenges and to get EBA where it is needed. And this involves a lot of work, research and evaluation of practical examples, documentation, the sharing of results, creation of knowledge platform, as well as networks. And this is, we heard it in their presentation, what the 3 projects led by GIZ, IUCN, and IID do, whose representatives are with me on the panel, do and deliver so well, and why they are actually so essential. They serve as multiplicators and as catalysts. And at the ICI, we do appreciate their role and their achievements very much. And within the donor landscape, it is not so common to invest in these type of projects. But within the ICI, we do fund these projects because we are well aware of their added value they generate and the many benefits they bring to the global EBA community. And if we look closer, these 3 projects actually allow for the pooling and combining of expertise, of capacities, of resources, and therefore permitting the ICI to stimulate capacity building and cross-fertilization to create a momentum and to harness synergies in one of its key funding priorities. They actually allow the EBA community to go further and to achieve more. So in this regard, we are really happy about the recognition achieved, and there are fruitful collaborations with the conventions, visible, for example, in the voluntary guidelines for EBA and ECODRR under the CBD, the cooperation with the Nairobi Work Program, we heard about this as well, the EBA Navigator, who catalogs all huge range of existing tools and methods for practitioners of EBA, and also the impressive number of EBA solutions and approaches that are featured on the Panorama Knowledge platform. These actually are all successful examples of how these concerted efforts of the 3 projects have led to informing international discussion and key processes within the UNFCCC and the CBD frameworks, and to ensure that EBA methods and instruments are incorporated so that they can be used worldwide.
Very nice. Thank you very much. So what I really understand, I mean, this is not like a random funding of some project. There's really a big picture behind it. This starts with picking up knowledge, managing, framing the knowledge, disseminating the knowledge, using the network part, using the scientific expertise, using the community traditional knowledge expertise, kind of combine them, and also lift it up to the policy level when we're talking about CBD and when we're talking about UNFCCC. And this is why and BMU and ICI is financing or funding those projects. But still, let me get a little bit because, of course, I mean, let's be frank. There is in the landscape of funded institutions and networks, there is tons of them. Okay, and some people might say, my God, again, another one. So we kind of lose the orientation. But how do you ensure, and now I'm talking also to the projects, are you interacting a lot with each other? Is there a kind of that you really complement each other? And if you do so, how do you do this? I mean, this can go to you, Ms. Konstantinidis, but the question can also go to one of the other 3 projects. Can you give examples how you complement each other or how you cooperate? This is someone who wants to talk about the practice. An example.
Yeah, I'm happy to. For example, from FEBA platform, we work with IID, we work with GIZ Knowledge Day, which is held usually at Bonn, and this time it was virtual together with GIZ organizing and we coming together, and almost all recipient in EBA, in adaptation also, UNDP, UN agencies, UNEP, Nairobi Work Program, CBD Secretariat, UNCCD, many donors, we all come together. And that's why, the value addition is, if there is a policy gap, let's work together. There are task team and working groups. Depending on the identified needs, they come together. And for example, now the new group, which is about to be, working together on FEBA, would be One Health. Green recovery, bringing all these actors together, as you were asking earlier, eco DRR, EBA, and other, there are similarities, but at the same time, constituencies are different. Policymakers, different departments, ministries who usually don't talk to each other. So we provide that platform, bringing diverse actors together and building upon each other's speciality. So very much, many of these working papers which are out, policy briefs, these knowledge days, they are all collaborative efforts, which otherwise wouldn't have had taken place had these processes were not in place, and infrastructure is providing that space to people with diverse expertise coming together, because adaptation cannot work, and I'm saying cannot, not just with one speciality, whether it is environment and other, you need to have, because everything is getting impacted. So that's why I need to have integrated approach, which unfortunately still not taking place at the desired level, but we can move together on these platforms.
This is exactly the question of sustainability, right? How can we really design something that is going to be lasting? Arno, please, you want to reply to this as well? Maybe complement or have a different opinion?
Absolutely. Just by starting to say there's not exactly tons of network work out there. It's just a few, but they are important. We have there's a FEBA, we have the PEDR, I hope you pronounce it right. We have the best net, we have WeAdapt, and also there's some others. I have noted WOCAT, and I'll tell you why. Because starting with the last one is the WOCAT. It is a network that's really concentrating more on sustainable land management and agriculture. And that really becomes increasingly important. If you talk about mainstreaming EBA, we have to leave our comfort zone, and sorry for harping on the same old string all the time, but really we have to venture out into the dark here, right? So that's other sectors than the environment sectors. That's, as I said, it's agriculture, it's water, it's forest, and it is some more. And that's where those networks, they become essential. So if we manage to forge partnerships with those, I think we will have reached a lot. And we have to WeAdapt, mentioned that we have the best net, also the best net. I think, by the way, it's also been financed by the BMU. That's very much, as you all know, concentrating on the biodiversity issue, which also gains increasingly importance. We're talking about combining those two issues of biodiversity and the climate issue. So in that context, we have to link up and see. And Ali, you're absolutely right in saying that we haven't really reached that, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. We can fill the other. Yeah. Okay. Stop here. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So there were other hands raised, and I would like to give the word in the order. It's Hao Ting Hu Jones, and then we had Dorothea Konstantinidis. Why you lowered your hand again, then you raised it again. So those two, and then we have a question from the audience. Please.
Great. Thanks. And I just want to say I really agree with what Arno and Ali said, but just to add to that, I think when you ask about how we complement each other, we work really extensively together, and they give quite a lot of examples already. And I think it's really thanks to ICI and the BMU for recognizing the importance of managing knowledge and sharing knowledge, and also strategically think how these three projects can complement each other. As I mentioned, we really work on that vertical link and bring in additional voices that we are really good at. So beyond the national government level, subnational, local stakeholders. And I think that's really thanks to ICI for that strategic vision, because that really also plays into the sustainability of how knowledge generated and is used. For example, collaborated really closely with IUCN and GIZ, and UNEP WCMC led this navigator of tools. So we actually found there's more than 250 tools out there published already to teach you how to do the design, plan, implementation, monitoring, evaluation of EBA. And when you ask local stakeholders, those are not really well known. There's two key barriers on why those knowledge, like those tools are already existing, are not used. One is that, as you said, that sometimes the knowledge is scattered, it's not accessible. A lot of the tools is not available in local language. So English is predominantly the language, few in Spanish.
Even French sometimes is not available, yeah.
Yeah, so then in the developing countries where it's really needed, the accessibility is low, and at the same time, it's the capacity of the local stakeholders to use them, even if they know it's there. So, for example, BMU is now ICI is supporting us to make it this navigator tool more accessible on a web page. So there's wiki functions, then people can comment, have user experiences reflected in it. But at the same time, then we're trying to really invest all energy in that vertical link and building local stakeholders' capacity. And I welcome everyone to come to the governance session later, where we'll be talking about how to strengthen that local capacity to use the knowledge, then to implement EBA. Otherwise, even we put all the knowledge together, which is an important first step, then it still wouldn't be used cross-sectorally to scale up EBA. And just one last point, at local level, we've seen that all the silos we've seen at national, international level, where people are discussing separate biodiversity, environment, climate change, it seems quite separate, but actually at local level, a lot of those crises and the threats are manifesting in the same way, and they're interlinked and experienced together. So those local institutions, when we strengthen their capacity and make that vertical link to the international knowledges, then that can really help them. The cross-sectoral actions would really manifest at a local level.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you very much. So, Ms. Konstantinidis, Dorothea Konstantinidis, please.
Yeah, let me just add maybe from the perspective of the ICI Secretariat, where the long way that we have actually made so far. Because if we talk about these projects, a lot has changed in the field of EBA. If we think about a decade ago, it was when the concept itself was emerging, it was about single project, about testing it and piloting it on the ground, about disseminating the successes of these projects, and then shifting the focus from specific projects and their outcomes to generating good practices, lessons learned, to actually generating the evidence of what worked, how and why. We actually came to a systematization and were able, thanks to these projects, to actually deliver approaches, methods, tools, methodologies, and even standards. So as we move towards the proof of the concept of EBA and its dissemination, and today EBA is a well-defined concept, and with the voluntary guidelines for the design and effective implementation of ecosystem-based approaches and eco-DRR in the CBD, we have a clear framework for the planning and implementation of EBA projects. And this is thanks to the concerted effort of these three projects partnering up with UN, UNEP. So this actually allows us also to move towards the next generation of EBA projects, where the ICI is now dedicated to actually upscaling and mainstreaming and consolidating EBA across sectors and across administrative level to make it an integral part of the adaptation response of vulnerable society and the adaptation portfolio of states all over the world. They have actually helped to make EBA part of the picture.
Yeah, thank you very much. Wow. I gotta say, my team in my background comes a little bit nervous because we are over time and was so rich, and I would love to continue this discussion here on the panel, but then I'm going to be in big trouble later because they have to change all the activities. No, but really, I have so many questions. Now, what you just said, Dorothea Konstantinidis, was, for example, I would also talk about there's a change of generation, younger people coming up now. They have different forms of knowledge generation, different form of communicating, and integrating communities into the entire EBA process works totally different than 10 years ago. Then we would come to a level, you know, and we come to the socioeconomic level, of course, valorization, and get all the sectors together. Let's make a 2-day event on that. I think it would be worthwhile. But thank you very, very much, all those panelists, and you 4 panelists. Thank you very much. It was really enlightening also for me. Like I said, I come from the side a little bit, not really an expert in EBA, and was very clear. Thank you. If people had the chance to applaud, they would applaud you. So I do it for them. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you.